another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
And we have with us Rodney Glassman. Now, Rodney has been friends of ours with you for many years because of the Tucson thing.
I mean, forever.
Yeah.
Like, I've known Rodney when he came to town, and he had the ice rink in Tucson.
and
he was putting on Valentine's Day concerts that I got to sing at.
There you go.
You can see those online.
And Rodney and I met probably, 2015?
Yeah.
Was it 10 years ago?
14, 15.
14, 15. And, at that point, Rodney, the only thing I had known about you was that you could run as a Democrat against John McCain in 2010.
Yes.
So when you reached out, I was like, why does this guy want to talk to me? But then you talked about your conversion to being a Republican. And
actually, interesting, when we had lunch, I don't think I was a Republican yet.
Is that?
Yeah, I registered Republican. I know the date because it was June 16th, 2015. It was the day that President Trump announced. And I don't remember if when we had our lunch, I had relationships. I was always doing community work and involved in the community. And you, with the impact that you had, because I was always a fan of Governor Ducey and a fan of many other Republicans that I was close with. So you were just like growing up at age 19 and on. Chris was part of the Golden Eagle family, and I had the real cool connection that Chris's mom and my mom figured out is my mom's from the Central Valley of California, a little town called 5 Points with like 4 families. And your mom's from Fowler, right?
Fowler, yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to the town that refuses to die and has not changed since 1955.
Right. All 4 of you, hello.
Yeah, they figured it out at the Valentine's show where Chris was singing. Our 2 moms came up arm in arm together, and we're like, how did you not know this? And I'm like, the question is, how in a room of 300 people did you 2 figure this out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a long time ago. That was a lifetime ago.
That was pre-kids, pre-wife, pre-Air Force for me.
Yeah, pre everything for you.
Yeah. I was 24.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
But you also have a claim to fame. Before your conversion, you were on the Tucson City Council as a liberal Democrat, and you worked for former Congressman Raúl Grijalva, and actually was instrumental. I have to give you credit for this because Raúl Grijalva, towards our business at the time, Golden Eagle, we had somewhat of an adversarial relationship at that time due to some past history, and you were like, Let's mend these fences. Let's have some conversations. And you arranged like a breakfast.
Yeah, we had I remember that was
at Golden Eagle.
There you go.
And ever since then, actually, in the previous things that I got to work on for veterans and other things, when I would go see Raúl, I think it has to do with that breakfast you put together because he was always very welcoming, and he was always actually very prepared. We talked about this on another show.
Yeah.
Very prepared with whatever I was going to talk about. When I was doing things for Boulder Crest and Sonoyta, he was always prepared about what the issues were.
Well, I'm 47. We were talking before it started about our getting older. At the time, I was 23, and Sean, state Arizona politics better than anyone. And I was 23. I was in grad school, and I wanted to, as you know, be involved in the community. I was on a bunch of nonprofit boards, wanted to make a difference. And back in those days, there were 2 congressmen. There was Congressman Colby, and then there was the newly elected Raúl.
Yeah.
And if you looked at it, my background, I worked in the business community. I was working in the home building industry. I had my real estate license. I did a ton of charity work because friends like Chris and others would write me checks to help other nonprofits. Just by raising money. And I knew my strengths were agriculture because of the Fowler 5 Points Fresno background
for sure.
And the business community. And so when it came to getting engaged, I wanted to help connect the business community and the ag community with a congressman. There were only 2 at the time. And you know who had the job of connecting with the business community in the other congressman's office? Jim Colby. He was the guy that was the community guy reaching out. And so I appreciate that story, Chris, because that was my goal. My goal was, I didn't know I didn't know that Grijalva had ignored the business community for the 25 years before I moved to Tucson. And so
I don't know if it was so much ignoring, but it was adversarial.
And I didn't know that.
sure.
So I remember it clear. I remember it clear as day because you had a cool conference room and there was a bar in
Yes.
the conference room.
Of course there was.
And there was a bar in the conference room, and I remember you pulled me to the side and you said, "This guy," you know, and I said, "I can't guarantee how he'll vote on anything because his politics were, even I knew then his politics were terrible. But I said, I guarantee you we'll always call you back because that was my job, was to call these people back that hadn't been called back or had been pounded on. And may he rest in peace. The reality is while he didn't agree with a lot of what was going on, he gave me the opportunity while I was in grad school from age 23 to 27 to make a difference that no one else would have been able to make just by building relationships. And it's funny because now, as you know, I'm running for attorney general, and there's only 2 of us in the Republican primary.
Yeah.
And everywhere we go, whether it was the Turning Point rally for Congressman Biggs just 2 weeks ago or anywhere else, my opponent likes to stand up and tell everyone about how I used to work for a guy who's now dead, how I was endorsed by liberal organizations. He leaves out the fact that it was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the attack on me. I've ran for other offices, and I used to be a Democrat, with the irony being I'm running to be your lawyer, to get hired to be your lawyer. And it's a very unique position because no one ever calls their lawyer and says, "Can you explain the law to me?" You call your lawyer because you want them to get something done. And so I'm having a lot of fun with the Attorney General's race because I'm the only one running that's ever actually had a client or prosecuted a case or been a lawyer for anyone.
Yeah.
And so it's going well, but it's interesting. It's fun to go with friends back, 15, 20 years, because it's the thing that the other guy keeps trying to pound on my head,
right,
without reminding them how long ago it was.
Well, it's look, it's primary politics. That's the way it's going to go. And we have a lot of people in our party who have started as Democrats and converted. That's not uncommon. Going back to Reagan,
Bob Stump.
Before that, Bob Stump. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a lot. So in that regard, look, I'm sure you have great explanations for why that change happened. But one of the things and I remember this is a conversation you and I had before you ran for AG last time, was because you have run for a number of offices, and your comment then was, this is the office that really fits my strengths. And, at the time, last time when Kris Mayes ended up winning, you were in a primary that had like 6 or 7 people.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us. And it's if you go back to that, because I remember we had breakfast. I think it was at the Biltmore.
At the Adobe.
At the end.
Boy, speaking of which, they have done magic. The Adobe is completely different now.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's
we go there for
amazing.
Sunday brunch every once in a while. It's great.
I hadn't been there. I think the last time I was there before I went this just a few weeks ago was when we had breakfast 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pit.
And it was still the
But-
original Adobe.
But it was quaint.
Yeah, it was quaint. But man, it's sharp. Anyway, sorry.
Digress.
The Adobe's beautiful, and I don't just say that because Jerry Colangelo is one of my contributors. I say that because it's a beautiful place to go. But yeah, in 2022 we had a 6-way primary, and I finished second. I was able to beat a very talented retired Supreme Court judge. I was able to beat a nice lady whose family started Ping. We beat an assistant U.S. attorney with a lot of legal experience, and we beat the woman who had ran for Congress a couple times, even with President Trump's endorsement. But in a 6-way primary, not having President Trump's support, because I didn't get that endorsement, I think the winner had right around 30% of the vote in the primary, in that 6-way primary. And then unfortunately, Abe lost to Kris Mayes. Abe, Congressman Hamadeh now, is now in Congress. So finishing second, I'm kind of a NASCAR guy. That puts me in pole position, so it's an exciting primary this time, because what Kris Mayes and that mortgage fraud lady from New York have really demonstrated well is there's a reason why the AG is independently elected. Most people don't realize that the Attorney General doesn't work for the governor, doesn't work for the legislature, and we're not in Wyoming, Alaska, or Tennessee where it's appointed.
Yeah.
They work for whoever puts them there. So people always ask, what's wrong with Kris Mayes? And in addition to the fact that I do think she's insane, because she hates cops, she hates kids, she hates the private sector. The other reality is she is doing the bidding of the people that paid to get her there. Mm-hmm. And as business people, because you both are, when you hire your attorney, you hire the person that will view the law through the lens with which you've hired them to view it. And the lens that I will bring, and the reason I think we're getting the kind of support early that we are, even against someone who's a longtime elected official, is because when I say I'm going to protect cops, Jerry Sheridan, the Maricopa County Sheriff's co-chairing my campaign. When I say I'm going to protect kids, the former Attorney General, Tom Horn, who runs the Department of Education that has no lawyers because they're all assistant attorney generals,
right,
is my co-chairman. And then when we talk about issues like election integrity, literally the woman who championed the audit, which was a recount, but not very effective because of the fact that there was no chain of custody and they couldn't get the ballots from the people that ran the elections, Karen Fan, is co-chairing my campaign, with the irony being, just like you, Chris, all of my co-chairs had been friends with me before June 16th, 2015, which only makes me look like an idiot because I may have been the last person in Arizona to realize I was a Republican.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Carrie Lake might have been after you. But
I think former mayor of Tucson, Bob Walkup, rest in peace, made that comment several times.
Yeah, when Bob was great. He passed away during COVID, and I sang at his sang in uniform. He was in hospice.
Yeah,
and so he wrote his own funeral service, and it was down on Grant at the mortuary there. The service there was probably only like 50 of us there, but Beth, his wife, called right after he passed away and said, "Bob wanted you to come down in your Air Force uniform and sing Amazing Grace." And that was Bob. I was the only former elected official. The guy was mayor for 12 years.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends statewide. The only former elected official that was at the funeral was me. But you would have liked it.
Because of COVID.
No, he made a list of who could come.
Oh, that was it?
It was, he made because there were only 50 people in the room, but of all that community service he did, it was just he was a great man, but he was a mentor and friend. I remember when I joined the Air Force, I was going to officer training. Yeah. And Bob, remember how he always talked with his hands? Yeah. And he was an engineer. He used and then Raytheon, and he called me up because it was my last meeting before I went to Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, and he drew a chart or a graphic of his favorite obstacle course from when he was at basic training. And it was crazy because we're 3 or 4 weeks in and doing this obstacle training at Maxwell Air Force Base, and son of a bitch, the thing he had talked to me about was there. And I almost got in trouble because you're not supposed to see them before you do them. And I was yelling across from the other side, I know this one. And then I had to explain to them, no, the mayor of Tucson explained it to me. It's okay. Yeah, they thought I was nuts.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Bob was a good man. I was sad when he passed away.
Very.
So what, talk to us about, one, why are you running? And two, what is, I was trying to make a joke out of that, but because Kris Mayes is so terrible, it's no question why you're running, right? Because you want to undo the problem. But talk to us about the stuff that she's doing and why we should care as voters in Arizona.
Well, so why I'm running, which because we all have kids around the same age. I think I got the oldest kids, other than Some of your older, like I got,
my
you know,
older,
yeah. So the reality is I'm running.
We lost count on how many kids.
Fair
Sean
enough.
has
Fair
one time
enough.
ago.
You got the.
I mean, let's just be honest. Is it 8? Is it 6? No, it's 8.
The only thing I know for sure is you're the only one, Sean, that doesn't have a wife named Sasha at this table.
That's right.
I'll give you that.
That is true.
I'll give you that. But the reality is I'm running for attorney general again because I want the job. And the reason I want the job is because the attorney general is the only person, and I'll tell you why Kris Mayes is bad in the same. The attorney general is the only person in Arizona that can wake up in the morning and our current attorney general decides she hates President Trump. And so only the attorney general can unilaterally wake up and sue the Trump administration, whether it's for whatever they want. And Mayes has a particular model she uses. She sues the Trump administration, then she sends out a press release, and then she sends an email to her donors asking for money.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
That's typical.
She's done it over 20 times this year alone. But
She sued 20 times?
And she's losing she's losing. But you know politics. It's not about whether she loses them or not, because number one, the Arizona state legislature, being led by my opponent, is about to pass another budget that funds her office so that they can have the resources to sue the Trump administration. So don't let anyone from the legislature come to your podcast and complain about the lawsuits, because they're funding them. And you know, they could change that with a simple vote, budget reconciliation bills. But so number one, only the attorney general can wake up and do that. Only the attorney general can wake up and decide. And I have girls, you guys know that, 14 and 12. Only the attorney general, Kris Mayes, wakes up and says, you know what? I hate little girls. And so they should have to compete against little boys with penises. In fact, boys with penises should be able to go into, the Kris Mayes thinks that boys with penises should be able to go in and use girls' bathrooms, and only she has that unilateral authority. Only Kris Mayes wakes up and says, you know, I hate private property rights, so I'm going to sue the 7 largest property owners in the state for using the same algorithm that what U-Haul uses and the airlines use for pricing. That's the attorney general. It is the most powerful elected office in the state. She wakes up, she hates cops, so that she doesn't think that they should be allowed to ask someone who gets pulled over with probable cause for their driver's license. So she sues over that too. That she's combination insane and doing the bidding of the people that elected her. But I'm running because I want to protect our police. We live down the street from Kris. We live in the city of Phoenix. We're under-policed. We're supposed to have 5,000 police officers. We have like 2,800. Yeah. Because why would someone sign up for a job where no one's going to have your back? I mean, Stacey Sheridan, the sheriff's wife, goes to so many events with me because she wants me to be the attorney general, because the only person that can protect the sheriff is who? The attorney general.
Sure.
When it comes to the business community, you know, Tom Hatton from Mountainside Fitness is a max contributor of our campaign. And the question,
Tom took on the governor during COVID.
Well, and why did Tom have to take on the governor? Because, and Sean, you know the answer, there's only one person with immediate standing to sue the governor over an illegal executive order. Who is that? The attorney general. Yeah. There's only one person that could have kept Prop 208, and we all have, you know, we're all from the business community here. Yeah. We all have friends who either moved their businesses or left Arizona personally because Prop 208 was put on the ballot, the doubling of our state income taxes. The only person that would have had immediate standing before the election to sue over that ballot language, to keep it from being even considered, would have been the attorney general. And because he didn't do that, Governor Ducey had to go out, raise a ton of money from your business friends, from my business friends, to run a No on 208 campaign, which unfortunately failed. And then the governor had to go out again, because the only person that had immediate standing was the attorney general to sue, and he wouldn't do it then either. So then he had to go out and raise money for the Goldwater Institute, and God bless the Goldwater Institute. John Riches and I, he's the head litigation over there. He and I married 2 of the prettiest girls from the U of A Law School, first time around. Yeah. And but the reality is once again, he had to go do that to raise money because the attorney general wasn't doing their job. So when I say protect police, it's because I'm on the board of the 100 Club. I've been a big law enforcement guy for a long time. They support me. When I say protecting kids, I have them. I know they're in the schools. My wife's on a charter school board. You know, that matters to all of us. And we're now at that age where your kids just don't hang out with the kids from their own school. So I need all the schools to be strong. I don't want anybody learning about DEI. We have a legislature that passes a law that says there's no DEI, but who's in charge of enforcing the law? the Attorney General, and you have, lastly, the business community. And the AG's office is truly the least understood elected office in the state, because it's the largest law office in the state, over 400 attorneys, over 1,000 support staff, providing all the legal services for every state agency. The governor only gets 1 or 2 attorneys, and that's it. So think about it. There's 54,000 realtors in Arizona. The Governor Hobbs appoints the real estate commissioner. How many attorneys does the Department of Real Estate have? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
0, because they're all assistant attorney
AGs.
generals. The Department of, like, Tom Horn's chairing my campaign. Why does he care? Well, because guess how many attorneys the Department of Education has?
Yeah, 0.
The registrar of contractors, the state land department. You pick a state agency, and I call it, and we both have Sashas, so it's PTSD from being married, but I call it the mom or wife of government, because you've got a striped shirt on right now, and if my wife or your wife walked in and said you were wearing a blue solid shirt, Sean would have to ask himself, is this worth me self-impaling by disagreeing with the wife? And because it was Ben Franklin said, don't ever argue with someone that buys ink by the barrel.
Right.
Yeah. So unless the legislature cuts off her funding, she's got unlimited funding before she even goes to the private sector to sue the president, to indict. So on day one, I will withdraw Arizona from the 20 clickbait lawsuits that Kris Mayes has put forward against the Trump administration. And on day one, I will rescind the politically charged indictments that Kris Mayes has been making against good Republicans solely because they supported President Trump. That's day one. And then the next 100 days, as you know, having been close to the governor before, the next 100 days is designed where the Attorney General is supposed to kill the bad bills and champion the good ones with non-binding legal opinions, because I'll be the only one looking at them who's actually been hired by other people to be an attorney before. So sorry for the long answer, but I want this job, Sean, and so I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to explain it.
Yeah, well, it is frightening when you think about. I mean, I've known Kris Mayes for a long time. I knew her when she was press secretary for Bob Stump, and she was still a Republican. Yeah.
Well, at least we thought. I mean, who knows at this point?
Well, I mean, yeah. And then I watched her just become radicalized, going to law school, then becoming a corporation commissioner. And the idea that she's the attorney general is literally frightening. Literally frightening.
It is scary, especially because someone who studies government like you have and had such an impact on the state, it's the most powerful elected office in the state. I run around with the sheriff of Maricopa County. I just got endorsed by the Yuma County Sheriff, Leon Wilmot, down at the border. And the sheriffs always they kind of roll their eyes when I say it, that it's the most powerful elected official in the state, because they're constitutionally created sheriffs, these guys. And they're great men, and I love them and always have their back. But the reality is when talking to a gubernatorial candidate, I remind them, whether it's Congressman Biggs or Karen Robeson or whoever, I always say, just remember, the governor cannot investigate or indict the attorney general. Yeah. But the attorney general can investigate and indict the governor. Yep. You look at all the Democrats that hate President Trump, all of them that were able to reach out with the long arm of the law and try to destroy him over the past 4 years before he got reelected, they all had the same job title, attorney general. And that's why, Sean, Kris Mayes is there, and we got to get rid of her. So how do you get rid of her? We have to nominate the strongest, most appealing Republican nominee that we can. It's an interesting situation because there's only 2 of us this time. It's not a 6-way primary. I've been practicing law for almost 20 years. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force JAG Corps out at Luke Air Force Base now. But as Chris knows, I've been to Alaska, I've been to Goodfellow and St. Angelo. I've fed my family working as having strangers pay me to be their lawyer. I'm the only one running like that. My opponent got his law license 13 months ago. My opponent has never had a client, has never tried a case, has never taken a deposition. And that's easily, you just go on the bar website and it says when you got it and whether you carry errors and omission insurance, which he doesn't even do that. And so if you put someone up, and then lastly, I think it is important, a track record. I have a track record. I was involved in the community. I used to be a Democrat. When I became a Republican, President Trump has ran 3 times for president. We're political beings. Everyone at this table even though now you have a podcast, Chris. So you said you're not going to write checks anymore. We have all written checks to candidates.
I still write checks to a lot of people
I asked, so I'll keep asking. We've all written checks to candidates, but it's a funny situation when the guy who used to be a Democrat is the only person in a 2-man race that's ever written a check to President Trump. And President Trump's ran 3 times. So you can look at that track record, the good and the bad, the old and the new. You know, when we're talking my old days working for the congressman, I was 23. I'm 47 now. So I don't have a long, good explanation for why I became a Republican. It's very simple. I grew up. And if you grow up, and there's a lot of people across the state that would like to have someone like me as the attorney general that's just going to represent the things they care about, protecting girls, you know, protecting cops, protecting jobs. And so but my time is not spent doing anything other than educating people on the job. And that's why this is such a great forum, because if you don't understand what the job is, why would you care about investing in it or care about who it is? Right. She's done a good job, Kris Mayes. When I say a good job, I mean a terrible job for Arizona, but an effective job of showing how powerful the elected office is, because she abuses it. She abuses her power. She's vindictive. She's mean. And she's mean to kids. She's mean to cops. I mean, the thing about the Maricopa County, we've been under this pattern of practice investigation and these court orders related to police officers. Yeah. And she was the attorney general for 2 years and didn't say boo. Didn't say boo. And those dollars that are going to federal court monitors could have been spent to hire more police officers. They could have been spent to pave our streets. They could have been spent for all these different things. And so it's really an education process. We have our website, you know, it's rodneyglassman.com. And I want to get out there as often as possible. So that's why I'm really thrilled for you to have me here today, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is good. Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and distinguishing yourself in a way from your opponent, which, you know, a lot of people probably don't know, but also explaining the power that is behind the attorney general and the mess that Kris Mayes has brought upon the state, and someone who really was not very qualified to begin with.
The challenge is, I
mean, both candidates on that top of the ticket, Kris Mayes and the governor, were vastly underqualified, and they've proven it time and time again. And thankfully, our state is what we like to say is a red state masquerading as a purple state, and hopefully that'll bear itself out this next election.
Well, and I mean, you say that Mayes is underqualified. I probably disagree with you, because she's very, very smart.
I'm not insulting her intelligence. I don't know. I don't think she's using the office, like weaponizing the office. Well, fine.
Yeah. I mean, so she is not right for the job. Yeah. Let's put it that way. But
I would argue that the person that she ran against was equally unqualified. So that was an issue.
Part of the challenge
versus Rodney or versus some of our other friends who are running in the primary.
I'd give Congressman Hamadeh credit. Congressman Hamadeh it was a few years at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, but he was in court. He'd prosecuted before.
Yeah,
he'd prosecuted. Kris Mayes has never prosecuted a case. The congressman was a veteran. He had served. He'd been deployed. I don't think Kris Mayes has ever served in uniform. Kris Mayes, ironically, aligns her background of never doing anything. Actually, aligns really well with my Republican primary opponent, who's never prosecuted, who's never served in uniform. But the challenge why you could both be right is that unless you understand what the job is, then how do you know if someone's qualified for it? And the irony is the only thing you have to be in the Arizona Constitution is an attorney. In fact, this came up a couple of months ago because there's a state law that was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor that says that you have to have 5 years of legal experience to be eligible to be attorney general. When Tim Lasota's father, who we all know Tim is a good attorney in town, when his dad was involved, that law, because it's a law, it's on the books, was brought up because one of the people that was running or trying to serve didn't have the 5 years experience. But remember, and we all go back to our constitutional law days, the legislature cannot create laws that amend the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so believe it or not, the Supreme Court of Arizona said that law requiring experience, or as you would call it, Chris, qualifications.
Sure.
That law is unenforceable. So my opponent was actually asked about that law at a legislative district. And he said, well, that is the law, but the good news is the Supreme Court threw it out, so I don't have to have any experience to run against Rodney. That was literally his response. It's a crazy deal.
Yeah. Well, to put the finer point on the Kris Mayes thing, I think because you point out rightly that it is the most powerful office in Arizona, to have her as the Attorney General is very bad for the state.
It is.
And so she needs to be replaced.
It's going to be really interesting to see her actions over the next couple of days when we have these protests that are supposed to be staged over the next in many of our communities, starting Saturday, the No Kings movement or whatever that looks like, and then whether she will try to back up the blue.
Yeah,
and to your point, will
probably
she?
Probably won't. Rodney, thank you for taking the time. People can follow you at rodneyglassman.com.
Yeah, rodneyglassman.com. And we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn.
There you go.
Contrary to some people's complaints. But I think the reality is anything we can do to educate people about the job and the fact that it is the most powerful, far-reaching office in the state. It's like we're all old enough to remember the Kevin Bacon game. You don't need to talk about three things to get your business friend back to the AG's office. They just need one phone number, and that's why I'm running, to protect my family and yours. Police, kids, prosperity, and to support President Trump in securing our southern border. And so I appreciate you having me. I'd love to come back.
Sure.
And really appreciate the friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck to you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
All right. God bless.
Take care.